Have you ever had a dream of creating something, of having an idea and bringing it into the world, manifesting something out of thin air, armed only with your pure will? Life has a nasty habit of getting in the way of your dreams. Most dreams end up disappearing and floating away in the wind. Only late at night, while you're sleeping fitfully, those dreams sometimes come back to whisper to you. They whisper of hope, of greatness. They whisper to us of a legacy that might live on beyond our mortal existence. Many people ignore those whispers, and the dream dies. But sometimes, very rarely, those dreams are nurtured. They take flight, and before you know it, they can take on a life of their own. Those dreams can become your reason to live. This is the story of one such dream, a dream that took 20 years to finally come to life. Wollongong. This is where it all began. Just an hour south of the bustling CBD of Sydney City. This is a place of contradictions, sandwiched between breathtaking mountains and the golden sands of some of Mother Nature's most stunning beaches. It's impossible to escape the working-class attitude of the place. So perhaps it's not surprising then that this unique melting pot gave birth to a budding music scene. Wollongong punches above its weight, and it punches hard. Amar Iqbal, Clinton Spence and Adam Matthews met at Fig Tree High School in the mid-90s. Like most high schools in Wollongong, they didn't have just one rock band, but four. Competition was fierce in the City of Steel. Amar had been singing in a band called Minkus.
My first ever gig with Minkus was this local outdoor festival. And for some reason I thought it would be a great idea to do a stage dive. It's a good thing it was an outdoor festival because that meant a low stage and soft grass because everybody just parted like the Red Sea and let me hit the deck. So I'm lying there on my back looking up at the sky and I just thought to myself, look, things can only go up from here.
Amar had recorded a lo-fi demo tape of some songs he'd written using just a beat-up old guitar and a second-hand boombox. Clinton got hold of this tape and was impressed enough to reach out.
So I heard Amar's demo tape. I gave him a call and I knew he was in Minkus and I'd seen him play. So I thought, I just have to call him and try and bring something together. And I thought, this guy's a rock star. I want to be in a rock band with him.
Together, with Adam on guitar, the trio got together to jam, and the magic was instant. They jammed on Hendrix, Marilyn Manson. They bonded over Mr. Bungle and Radiohead. Their mystique began to grow as they practiced every day in the school music room behind closed doors. No spectators allowed. Everyone was keen to see where this new band would go. They didn't have to wait long. Despite being an unknown new outfit, the trio managed to score a slot on the upcoming Battle of the Bands, competing with the region's hottest acts for fame and potentially their big break.
As the day was turning to night, I was sitting in this backstage area being interviewed by a radio journalist. I just remember having this sensation of butterflies in my stomach. But then the adrenaline kicked in when it was our turn to get up on stage. So I pick up my bass guitar and I realized not one, but two of the strings are broken. So clearly one of the other bands has been around and sabotaged our gear. So I was lucky, I had a backup bass, but then again, the first few minutes of our first ever show was me going, brow, 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 brow. Tuning a bass guitar is not the best way to start a rock show.
The show went from bad to worse. As the band dug into their 5-song set, the crowd fell silent. Their arty, funk-infused set of originals was no match for the crowd-pleasing grunge covers the other bands had delivered.
It didn't quite feel right. It felt a little bizarre.
They had no idea what we were doing up there. It became pretty clear we were going to have to take a step back and rethink things.
Shaken by the failure at the Battle of the Bands, they regrouped and took some time to think about their future direction. They decided that their vision was bigger than a trio could bring to life in a live setting. With the luxury of unlimited tracks and instruments on a record, they could truly bring their ideas to life. They began the process of writing 10 songs that would become their first album. With their vision set, they knew what they had to do. the band got to work.
So we got through recording 9 drum tracks in a week, and I think for anyone that's pretty incredible. At our age, it was we'd just conquered the world basically.
Riding on a high, the band decided to take a short break over the Christmas holidays. There was still some work ahead, but they were on their way. Time can be a funny thing. As the band took a short break, the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years. And at no point did the plan seem to waver. It was just a break, right? They'd be able to get back to it any time now, just after that next exam, the next promotion, that next kid. They'd get back to it real soon. Any day now. Any day. Armour had been out to a U2 concert. He came home that night with a weird cough. The headlines shook the world over the coming weeks. The COVID-19 pandemic was here, and everyone was in lockdown. Trapped in place, not able to leave the house, not able to travel, not knowing if they'd ever see each other again. The band were isolated from each other. Life had taken the trio their separate ways, but a global pandemic locked them there in place. Stuck in 3 different parts of the world, there was absolutely no chance for them to come together and make this project happen. 16 years after it was born, the dream of completing their album finally died. All hope was lost. They say what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. Armour made a solemn vow to himself. This album would be complete by December 2023, the 20th anniversary of having started the project. He wasn't about to let a global pandemic stop him from achieving his lifelong dream. With gritted teeth, he set out alone to make this album. He single-handedly built a home studio and put his head down to start writing. Despite the intense workload, time was fast running out, with just 8 months remaining until the deadline of December 2023, and only 3 of the 10 songs complete. Armour had to make a difficult decision. Was this album worth it? Would he be willing to put everything on the line to make it happen? Armour and his family uprooted themselves to move to the remote island of Phuket, Thailand.
It was a difficult decision to make. We left behind our jobs, our friends, our entire lives to move to Phuket. But I realised if this impossible task is ever going to get done, I have to be in total isolation.
With no distractions, he was making impressive progress and inching steadily towards completion as the months ticked away.
By the time December 2023 rolled around, all 10 songs were produced. I was in the final stages of mastering, so the finish line was well and truly in sight, and the only major thing left to do was to get the album published.
After negotiating a deal with his distribution company, Armour hit upload on the tracks and submitted the finished files. He headed out to celebrate, out in a local bar in Phuket, sitting back and sipping a well-earned drink. Armour's heart froze as he looked at his phone and saw an email he hadn't expected.
It was an email from the distribution company saying that they couldn't clear the rights on this one sample, so therefore they could not release the album. I looked into it, and it was the sound of a bird that I'd used in the background of one of these tracks from a sample library somewhere. So the clock was ticking. We're in the last few days of the year. I managed to track down the rights owner. He's a guy who records bird sounds in the Scottish countryside. But all I could get from him was a Hotmail address. I fired off an email basically begging for his help, but didn't hear anything back. So after all this time, I just hit a complete dead end. And to be staring down the barrel of defeat after all of that time and all of that effort, I was just gutted.
The weather was beginning to change as the last few days of December began to count down. People began putting up their year-end posts, and workplaces wound down for the Christmas break. Resigned to his defeat, Armour got on with the business of celebrating the silly season with family and friends. Out at a party, suddenly his phone buzzed. He'd received an email. His heart skipped a beat when he saw it. The Scottish bird whisperer had approved the use of his sample, and the album was cleared to go live.
I couldn't believe this was happening, but I opened up my Spotify app and there it was. The album was live. Such a good feeling. Then I looked over and my wife was kind of getting annoyed at me because I was basically ignoring everyone at this party. I just held up my phone and from across the room she saw it and she understood what was going on. So without a word, she walked over, she gave me a big hug and we both cried a little bit. It was finally over. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, there was a celebration that night.
20 years. Sometimes that's how long it takes for a dream to be realised. This is a story of determination, of collaboration, and of dedication. But above all, it's the story of what happens when we dare to dream.
Mother, look at the cracks upon her face. She's my lover. I lie here frozen in her cold embrace. Hot and cold, beauty and bold. Her light illuminates my soul. Mother.
Normally in life you get a few chances, if you're lucky, to revisit something that you created when you were younger, but you never get the opportunity to revisit something that was created and has the essence of a time that was really meaningful. And I guess if one was to really think about the project and to listen to the album and be caught up in the amazingness of the story, it's that time is precious, time moves fast, never forget, enjoy what you have now, and it's a gift that we share with others.
All these years, people would be confused when I told them I'm working on an album. It even took me a while to realize that this wasn't just some hobby to keep me busy on the weekends. It had taken on a much bigger purpose. When I look back at my life, I really wanted this project to be something I could look at with pride. I'll be able to take a step back and say, I made that. Something that can live on beyond me and my physical self. This wasn't about music anymore. It was about leaving a legacy. Now it's almost like a weight has been lifted. 20 years of my life went into making this album. And now we can see what comes next.